I know I usually do an intro, but I figured that for this one it's pretty self-explanatory. Yeah, RuneScape 3 has so many different microtransactions that I honestly keep forgetting some of them, and then I just go, oh right, you can actually pay for that. Obviously, any games with loads of microtransactions is never gonna be good, but just so you get the picture, let's actually look at all of the MTX available in RuneScape 3, and I really hope I don't forget any. I will also comment on them and sort of explain them a little bit to you. First up we have bonds. This is probably the most accepted form of microtransactions. While yes, all you are doing is buying GP, ultimately you are trading it for membership. Jagex makes it available at the exchange of having a safe way to set GP into your account. While in a perfect world we wouldn't have any MTX, I feel that this one is by far the most acceptable out of the other ones, especially because again you are trading the GP and Jagex is sacrificing the membership in a way. The Cellmate store. This one is just mostly a bunch of cosmetics and bundles you can buy with rune coins, which is the currency that you can buy with real money. Personally, as far as cosmetics go, I'm not a huge fan of non-earnable in-game things, but ultimately it's just cosmetics, it doesn't really earn that much. As for the bundles, they usually have stuff related to protein items and overall just XP related things which just shouldn't exist in the shop. I will explain why MTX can negatively impact the game a little bit later. You also have keepsake keys. These keys allow you to override any gear you are wearing with another item that is available usually in-game that is not cosmetic in nature. I think this is actually a pretty cool system, and while again I would love for stuff to be actually earnable in-game, I don't think players have an issue with this one because while the system does cost money, you do need the original item to keepsake it, which you have to earn in-game. RuneMetrics. I actually always forget that this is a thing, and like to this day I still have no clue why it's paid. Like legitimately, this is the type of thing that plugins provide in old school RuneScape, to the point where even the vanilla old school RuneScape client now actually has the same thing and the same type of plugins completely available for free. So I mean, I get it was implemented when Jagex was in like the super greedy phase, but it's an artifact that just should be removed. And while you're at it, just rework the system so it's easier and more appealing for players to actually use. Treasure Hunter. Legalized gambling. Yeah, this one is by far the most egregious, especially with how many constant promotions we get, and honestly it's by far the biggest source of displeasure amongst the community, as well as the biggest contributor to the image that RuneScape 3 is just a MTX riddled game. Rune Pass, Yak Track and Hero Pass. Essentially they are no longer in the game for good reason. Yak Track provided an XP bonus, Hero Pass had buyable comp requirements and buffs to gameplay. Outside of those things it was mostly cosmetics and players were kind of fine with them, however the way they were laid out was simply bad since it forces players to log in daily and make the game an absolute chore while giving you that fear of missing out. I did like the fact that daily challenges actually were removed, as I think that dailies are also a bad thing, although that's a topic for another video. As for the game systems themselves, a system that gives you a task, yeah, I mean, I think that, that has a place in RuneScape 3, and, look, old school RuneScape Game Jam just showcased an in-game bingo system that players can use to create their own bingos, so, maybe there is space for that in RuneScape 3. As far as them being MTX, absolutely not, horrible systems. Twitch. This one isn't exactly something you can buy in-game, however, if you did have a Twitch account linked to RuneScape, you would get monthly drops, which, usually meant XP items and so on. Not a huge fan of this type of integration, because usually the outsider company is just trying to entice people to use their service, and they do not know or care anything about the game. And I think that those are everything. Again, I might have actually forgotten something because there are so many ways Jagex has monetized the game that I can't even keep up with them anymore. Obviously, no game with this amount of monetization is going to be successful from the perspective of having higher player satisfaction, especially considering that, just a few months ago there was a survey on microbones and ads and stuff like that, and just extra ways to monetize the game. Hopefully, however, with a recent survey, they might actually remove some of the monetization system as opposed to just adding to the fucking absolute huge pile of the ones that the game already has. With that out of the way, let's actually tackle how bad they are for the game. Obviously, MTX is bad for a multitude of reasons. For one, they actually prey on people's psychological tendencies to maximize profits, which is kind of, unethical from a consumer perspective. However, something that I don't usually hear about is how MTX can actually have a negative impact in the game itself. So instead of raving about consumer protections, or at least what should be consumer protections, and, fucking Kinder Eggs, fucking EA. I'm actually going to be talking about the impact that this actually has in the game itself, be it directly or indirectly. The biggest impact that the game has with microtransactions is just the negative image that is associated with having microtransactions. While yes, these games tend to be successful from a monetary perspective, as there is a lot to be gained from exploiting your player base, you are essentially sacrificing the longevity of your game for short-term gain. This is something that a lot of companies that own MMORPGs actually do. They buy low population games, monetize the shit out of them, and when that game dies, they just move on to the next product. Obviously, this is treating players as a pure product rather than, people that have a conscience and stuff, and pretty much hurts everyone except for the people that just want to make money out of it, but it's genuinely what a lot of companies actually do. The issue with the image problem is that it then also cascades into other issues as well. Games with a bad reputation tend to be avoided by players, and a game that has no new players tends to focus their content on the active players, letting older content, usually early game content, decay, which, contributes further to, for the lack of new players, and the cycle pretty much just repeats. Then you also have to deal with the displeasure of your active community whenever you make content that isn't for them. So if you try and spend the time fixing early game content so it's more polished for newer players, for them to stick around, veterans will be angry at you because they feel like they are putting up with an exploitative system, and yet they aren't being catered to. You create a lose-lose situation by simply having an overabundant amount of microtransactions in your game. Another issue that MTX represents is related to the content as a whole. I already touched on it, but a few months ago I made a video about how protein items sucked and what issue they presented as a whole. I will have that video link in the description for you to check out entirely. However, without wanting to go too much into detail on this video, the TLDR is that the existence of these MTX methods to earn XP, so players can skip grinds they don't like, actually creates a gap in content available that the devs are never going to fill because everyone uses MTX items, further pushing people into MTX and creating a less healthy game environment, since potential content doesn't get developed due to players not interacting with it because it's outside of their levels. And the fact that it's outside of their levels is caused by MTX items. As I've mentioned several times, while in 10 years old school RuneScape got around 5 major agility updates and several small ones, RuneScape 3 got, 2.5 I guess? This is because everyone uses Silver Rock Feathers, an MTX item, which, to be fair, now you can actually craft it in-game, but they came from Treasure Hunter and were originally an MTX exclusive. That makes training agility super easy because you don't even need to interact with a skill. And that's the issue. Because of the MTX item, now Jagex introduced a way to craft these feathers in-game, forever changing how agility is trained, and all that came from MTX, instead of just developing a more fun and rewarding way to interact with agility. The presence of MTX and MTX items related to XP and skipping grinds because, overall people don't like it, actually causes an immense long-term damage to the game, both in player numbers and in content available in the game. That's why acceptable MTX practices are the ones that don't actually mess with the game, which is why cosmetics are so popular in this category. You can customize your character and make it unique to your own style without the gameplay being impacted. Obviously, as a consumer, the best interest I have is for the game to not have MTX at all. However, we also need to be really realistic with what we can achieve here, and honestly for now I would say that Bond's Solomon store for cosmetics and keepsake keys are the things that I would find acceptable to have in RuneScape 3. And while you're at it, just rework the fucking customization menu, Jagex. That thing is an absolute mess. Maybe in the future we can have a game like old school RuneScape where only membership and bonds exist, especially because membership already costs like 10 euros a month, but for now, any removal of MTX, especially Treasure Enter, will be a win in my book. And that's it for this video. I know it came out a bit of left field, but it's a video I've been meaning to make for a little while, especially because I tend to mention other content discussions in my videos, just as I did with this video for, added context. So having one I can just point to that goes over the general impact that MTX has, as well as showcasing how much MTX RuneScape 3 actually has, is kind of important to me. And also, the survey for MTX happened not too long ago, so I think I can have a bit more positive view for this video rather than completely shitting on the game. But yeah, that's pretty much it, and I'll see you in the next video.